Hello and welcome to my channel. Say hi to a happy day. In this channel, I would like to share tales and stories I personally picked and are my kids' favorite book stories. Let's enjoy listening while I read to you a story, Figaro's Day Out. Figaro scowled at Pinocchio from the corner. Ever since the blue fairy had brought the puppet to life, things had changed. Before, Figaro had slept in Geppetto's bed. He had eaten all his meals beside the woodcarver, and he had been the one Geppetto told his stories to. But now it seemed like Geppetto only had time for Pinocchio. Suddenly, a dragonfly flew past Figaro's nose. The kitten chased the bug through the cottage and out the front door. But before he could get his paw on it, the dragonfly flew out of the reach. Just then, Figaro heard a voice. "Here, kitty kitty! Here, kitty kitty!" Figaro happily trotted across the street to where a little girl stood with her mother. If Geppetto didn't have time for him, he'd get his snuggles somewhere else. "Oh, aren't you the sweetest little kitty?" the girl said. "I'm Victoria. I wish I could keep playing with you, but it's time for me to go home." Giving Figaro one last rub between the eyes, the girl stood up and she and her mother walked away. Keeping his eyes on the girl, Figaro followed behind, weaving down street after street. Finally, Victoria and her mother reached a small building. Figaro tried to follow them inside, but the girl's mother stopped him. "Oh, please, Mama," Victoria pleaded. "I'll take good care of him." "You know my rule," she said. "No animals." "I'm sorry, Kitty," Victoria said. "I'm not allowed to have pets. You go on home now." Figaro looked around. He had been so confused on following the little girl that he hadn't paid attention to where he was walking. He realized he had no idea where he was. Nothing looked familiar. How was he going to find his way home if he didn't know where he was? Figaro began to walk, but soon it started to rain. Figaro thought about the last time he'd been so wet. He had been outside playing Pinocchio and Geppetto did their shopping when suddenly it had started to rain. But the time the two got home, the poor kitten was shivering. Pinocchio had carried him inside and dried him off with a warm blanket. Suddenly, the little kitten's stomach began to grumble. It was dinner time. A little way down the road, Figaro spotted a market. Looking up at the fish seller, he meowed loudly, but the man just swatted him away. "Off you go," he said, brushing Figaro aside with a broom. "Find your food someplace else." Figaro's stomach growled again. It seemed that he might be going to sleep hungry. At the thought of sleep, Figaro yawned. Perhaps it would be best to find a place to spend the night. But everywhere Figaro tried to rest was already taken. He was chased out of a dark alley by an angry cat. In the park, a pack of vicious dogs snarled and barked at him until he ran away. And under the bridge, he was hurried off by a family of dogs. Spotting an empty step in front of a shop, Figaro lay down and put his head on his paws. The little kitten began to whimper. He had never been so cold, so hungry, so tired, oh, so lonely in his whole life. As he tried to get comfortable, Figaro thought of Pinocchio. Pinocchio had set up a nice spot near the fireplace for Figaro and even saved his allowance for a cozy blanket. Figaro started to feel bad for being angry with Pinocchio. The next morning, Figaro awoke to the sound of someone calling his name. "There you are!" Pinocchio cried. "Father and I have been looking for you all night." Suddenly, Pinocchio noticed that the little kitten was shivering. "Oh, you're freezing," he said. "Come along. We'd best get you home at once." Back at the woodcarver's workshop, Geppetto built up the fire and settled Figaro in his warm bed beside the fireplace. Pinocchio gave the kitten a bowl of cream and a plate of fish. "There now," Pinocchio said. "You should be feeling better in no time." Geppetto smiled at his son. "You take such good care of Figaro. There's nothing left for me to do for him. You certainly loved him, don't you?" Pinocchio sat down beside the kitten and began to pet him. "Oh, Figaro," he said, "what would we have done if we lost you? We do love you so." Figaro looked up at the boy, surprised. That was the first time Pinocchio had ever said he loved Figaro. But as Figaro thought for all the nice things Pinocchio had done for him, he realized the boy had been showing the kitten his love all along. Nuzzling Pinocchio, Figaro snuggled up on the boy's lap. Warm, dry, and with his belly full of food, the kitten began to drift off to sleep. Perhaps he thought Pinocchio wasn't so bad after all. In fact, having another person to love him sounded just fine to Figaro, and he realized he was starting to love the boy too. The end. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story, Figaro's Day Out. Please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to listen to more of our favorite book stories. See you soon!